Welcome to the Teapot Reads. My name's Sam. I'm the Teapot. This is what I am currently reading, and I am so happy to see you today. Hello and welcome. This is not a TBR video. This is just, I wanted to sit down and talk about books, and I recently posted a 10 books, 10 queer normative books you should read kind of video, and I didn't want to do a tier or stick to one genre necessarily. I just wanted to talk to you about books I've been thinking about reading, and to kind of curtail it from being too long of a video, I just stuck with classics. I'm also very much in a classics mood right now. It's really gotten me. I have been sick, so that's been fun. My throat, I still feel it, and I've actually got some tea I'm brewing right now. So I don't actually, the water just finished boiling. Let me go get the options for tea, and let's decide that real quick. If I can find it. I had a box. Here it is. I just completely forgot where I actually put it. So this is the Moomin tea that I picked up in London, and I actually haven't opened it yet. Let's see. It's a little sampler set. So we have Go For It, which is black tea, blueberry muffin flavors. That sounds good. It's Playtime, black tea, bergamot and orange flavors. Wonders of the World, black tea, truffle and chocolate flavors. Magic Storm, black tea, vanilla and pear flavors. Rosy Dreams, black tea, vanilla and red berries flavors. Honestly, Go For It is the one that's vibing with me. Isn't this just the cutest thing? Oh my gosh, it's shaped like a heart. That's so cute. Got Moomin troll on it. So I will steep this. It is black tea, so it actually wants 100 degrees Celsius. Oh yeah, Celsius. I'm living in America where we use Fahrenheit. Also, can we just talk about how cute the Hattie Fatteners are there? Well, that steeps, and it smells delicious, by the way. I'm gonna move Fourth Wing because I need you. Which you will get a full review for Fourth Wing when I finish it. I kind of read it with the intention of reviewing it. Anyway, these are, I didn't count. This is just a bunch of classics I've really had my eye on lately. You'll notice that they're either vintage or modern classics typically. I mean, I wouldn't say it's strictly that, but that is sort of my two favorite classic collections. So yeah, also some of these are probably debatable whether it's a classic, but if it was published by a press that typically does classics or an imprint that typically does classics, I'm just including it here. And like I said, this is not TBR. This is just, these are books that I want to read and have been thinking about reading so much. So we're just gonna go into it. This is probably the only one that I don't know if it would technically be considered a classic. This is my Year of Rest and Relaxation in the Vintage Heroines edition, which I do love these editions. Most of the other books, I think all of the other books on here probably could be considered classics, with Push being a very contemporary classic. I would say that my Year of Rest and Relaxation, Atesha Moshfegh, will probably be a classic author in another 20 years, give or take. I've got it in a Moomin mug too, because of course I had to. Oh, and it's to the brim. I'm less likely to forget about it if it's here. Year of Rest and Relaxation is, I actually have a couple different two different editions of this edition and then the original US paperback. It's, I believe, about a woman who decides to just sleep for a year, and if that is not just an absolute vibe, I feel like I personally am in the mood to sleep for a year and just do nothing. That just sounds like such a great reset on life. And obviously I cannot imagine she's actually asleep for the duration of this novel. Maybe she is. That would be pretty intense. I think that would be really cool. I could see myself reading this one actually fairly soon, just because I've been so mentally torrid. That's not the right word, but it feels right, like the right word. I've just been mentally distressed and feel like embracing that kind of chaos would be great. And I think the one thing that really convinced me to buy multiple copies of this book is the beginning. which has this just great start. Whenever I woke up, night or day, I'd shuffle through the bright marble foyer of my building and go up the block and around the corner where there's a bodega that never closed. I get 2 large coffees with cream and 6 sugars each, chug the first one in the elevator on the way back up to my apartment, then sip the second one slowly while I watched movies and ate animal crackers and took trazodone and Ambien and Nembutal until I fell asleep again. I lost track of time in this way. Days passed, weeks, a few months went by. When I thought of it, I ordered delivery from the Thai restaurant across the street or a tuna salad platter from the diner on First Avenue. I'd wake up to find voice messages on my cell phone from salons or spas confirming appointments I'd booked in my sleep. I always called back to cancel, which I hated doing because I hated talking to people. That's, yeah, how I think I would compare my, like, mental health with. Like, that is, if I was able, I had the money to just do fuck all. Yeah, I'd probably do that just with more reading. Which I look at these stacks of books and I'm just like, I wish I had more time to read. One that I probably will read really, really, really soon, just because I've been saying I'll read it for a while and because it's so tiny, is In Praise of Shadows by Junichiro Tanizaki. This is by the same guy who wrote the Makioka Sisters, which I really enjoyed, and the further I get from that book, the more I enjoy it. This is just an essay on Japanese aesthetic, and it is like literally tiny. I think it's like 69 pages. Nice. Big writing. I would probably knock this out in a day. And I've actually been debating after I finish Fourth Wing, just reading this, blitzing through it because, I don't know, it's interesting. I might get sticky tabs to keep track of it. I also really love this cover. There were a couple different editions, but this is the one that I was like, this is just so pretty. I have to have that cover. I did not realize it was less than 100 pages long. I thought it had a couple essays in it. But I'm actually kind of pleased that it's only one. And there is an introduction from Charles Moore from the School of Architecture. What does he say? Thus, darkness illuminates for us a culture very different from our own, but at the same time, it helps us to look deep into ourselves, to our own inhabitation of the world, as it describes with spine-tingling insights the traditional Japanese inhabitation of theirs. It could change our lives. And the Makioka Sisters wasn't really interested in aesthetic, flying book, but it was interested a lot in the old way of Japanese life kind of fading out. It takes place right before World War II, maybe before World War I as well. I don't remember. I thought it was just before World War II though, like in that period. I'll put up somewhere actual facts. I'm really bad with dates, but right around there. And there's going to be quite the shift happening in Japanese culture, especially not just Western ideals coming in, but literally the war is going to change everything. And Tanizaki was writing it from the point of view of obviously the future, and a lot of that book is about one way of life versus another way of life, and we see that even with the four sisters themselves. It would be really interesting to see him talk directly about culture, I think, rather than indirectly through a novel. Okay, moment of truth. This is good. My throat feels like shit, so I hope it's good. If it's not good, I have peppermint tea. I'm not a big person who likes sweet tea though, the sweeter flavors is not really. Yeah, that's quite good. I quite like that. Okay. The Master and Margarita, which I 100% thought this was called The Master and the Margarita for a long time, but it's The Master and Margarita, Margarita being a woman's name, by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is the Bulgakov I'm most interested in reading. I don't actually 100% know what it is, but there's a giant talking cat and Satan as a character in Moscow, I guess. The Master, a man devoted to truth, and Margarita, the woman he loves, can resist the devil's onslaught. Cool. This edition is translated by Michael Glennie, which I should say who translated this one. Thomas J. Harper and Edward Seidensticker, which I feel like I've seen Seidensticker's name in other translations of things. Maybe he did Makioka Sisters. This one's a fairly dense book, I think. And so this one will probably take me a while, but you're gonna see another major Russian novel on here and another Russian author who is not nearly as thick as like this one or the other one I'm gonna show you. But I read Anna Karenina, I think 2 years ago now, and I really thought that was gonna like kickstart a lot more Russian novels, and it just didn't. But I've been like very much missing that, even though I had a very, very complicated relationship with the book Anna Karenina. I think that reading someone not Tolstoy would be great. I have also, it's not in this pile, Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky is another one I really want to read. That one is also freaking huge, but I want to like actually annotate that one. And if I do, I'll probably do a video similar to the Anna Karenina video I did. I don't want to read the introduction because I've had the worst luck reading introductions. Like I've even read books where it's like, this introduction won't spoil anything, so you're totally fine, and then like literally goes on to spoil something. Like Lord of the Flies, when I had to read that for school, I was like, oh, I want to read the introduction just to get like some context. And it says this won't spoil anything for new readers, and then spoils everything. I was so fucking pissed. But I don't read intros. I actually really like to read intros when I'm about halfway to 2/3 of the way through a book. I like to have that context. This looks so exciting. I get so excited reading or looking at this one. The idea of reading it is just brilliant. Another vintage heroine is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, and this edition makes it look huge. I think the font is just like also gigantic, so it doesn't need to be this big. I've just heard this is such atmospheric book. Also, the main character's name is Cassandra, and I love the name Cassandra. I just do. The character Cassandra, the Oracle. Yeah, she's the Oracle. Yeah, from Greek myth. I've always loved her character, and I've always loved the name. We're gonna use an expensive word, a Bildungsroman. I have no idea if I'm saying that correctly, but I am using it correctly. It's a coming of age story, and my friend who read it said it was so much fun that she like lives in a castle with her family, like her bohemian family in their crumbling old castle. On the cusp of adulthood, Cassandra meets the family's growing challenges of poverty and decay with indefatigable, I know I'm not saying that right, humor and insight. It sounds fun. It sounds so whimsical. Oh my gosh, just flipping through part 1 says the end, slam the book shut in like all caps. Like that's amazing. I would love to read this in the summertime or the springtime or early fall at the latest. I'm very much a seasonal reader with classics. I feel like the vibes have to fit, and I can't imagine reading this in the winter. Maybe it takes place in the winter, but I just cannot imagine it. It gives me very like childhood explore and play vibes. And yeah, so for those of you who have read this and Atonement, would it be interesting to read this and Atonement back to back? Because I cannot precisely describe why, but I feel like those two books would communicate with each other. Like, I feel like it would. Okay, this next one. Which, side note, I sat in here partly because the dog was in here, and he got up almost as soon as I started setting up the camera. So he doesn't want to be on camera, but maybe he'll come. This is by Stella Gibbons. This is Westwood. I am, first of all, in love with the covers they did for Stella Gibbons books. I've been trying to collect them all, and I made myself stop because I literally haven't read anything that she wrote, but I have like 6 of them. Westwood, or The Gentle Powers. Ooh, also the Ex Libris. Really cute there. They don't normally do that. This is, I've seen Stella Gibbons kind of compared to Jane Austen, and anytime anyone is compared to Jane Austen, I'm like, yeah, I have to give them a try and just like prove whether it's accurate and known. Oh, it's very flappy as well. I believe so it's set in wartime London. Yeah, Stella Gibbons is the Jane Austen of the 20th century by the Times. So it makes me excited. Again, I could see this being like a summary book, which I think the cover just like gives it. It takes place mostly on the Heath. So anyway, set in wartime London, it tells the story of Margaret Steggles, a plain, bookish girl whose mother has told her that she's not the type that attracts men. Her school friend Hilda has a sunny temperament and keeps her service boys ever so cheery. Margaret finds a rationed book on Hampstead Heath. Pompous writer Gerard Chalice enters both their lives. Margaret slavishly adores Chalice and his artistic circle. Chalice idolizes Hilda for her hair and her eyes, and Hilda finds Chalice's romantic overtures a bit of a bind. This is a delightfully comic and wistful tale of love and longing. So it sounds very cute. It does also give off very Jane Austen vibes with that setup there. I think Stella Gibbons is best known for her Cold Comfort Farm, which the same friend who really likes Dodie Smith read recently and was like, yeah, it was fantastic. But I really want to start with this one. I also don't own Cold Comfort Farm, so that makes it hard to start with. I think it'd be fun to read outside. It's just been so hot lately. I've got the air on right now and I'm wearing sleeves because I really just wanted to be comfy today. But I honestly, probably after this video, it's still even just very hot in the sleeves and the air. I might change into a short sleeve shirt, but there weren't any I wanted to wear on camera. I apparently pulled 3 vintage heroine books, but this is Gigi by Colette, which I love this cover too. I literally have no idea what this is about. I think it might be a couple stories. It's Gigi and it's a second story called The Cat. And it's French. It has sticker residue I didn't notice before. Who translated? It's translated, Gigi is translated by Roger Sunhouse. And The Cat is translated by Antonia White. Very nice. I have just kind of been in the mood for French. Yeah, I've kind of been in this mood for a while and haven't let myself embrace it. There's another book by Colette that I think I wanted to read as well, but I don't have it. She was born in Burgundy in 1873 into a home overflowing with dog, cats, and children. By locking her in her room, Willie forced Colette to write her first novels, the Claudine sequence, which he published under his name. What the fuck? She had a love affair with Napoleon's niece, queer icon. When she died at 81, she was given a state funeral and buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. Set in 1899, 50 years before it was written, Colette's classic comedy Marriage of Mistresses stars a charmingly unconventional ingenue. Also really short, so I could see this one being a wintry book. I read Breakfast at Tiffany's earlier this year, and I am curious to see if it communicates with this one at all. Another queer writer, we have Christopher Isherwood. This is Mr. Norris Changes Trains. This is another one. I just love how the covers that the vintage editions did for these are matching and very pretty. The illustration is copyright Vanya Zurovlev, so sorry, and Big Active. This is, I think, Isherwood's most well-known one, which is, I think, why I grabbed it when I was looking. After a chance encounter on a train, the English teacher, William Bradshaw, starts a close friendship with the mildly sinister Arthur Norris. Norris is a man of contradictions, lavish but heavily in debt, excessively polite but sexually deviant. First published in 1933, Mr. Norris Changes Trains piquantly evokes the atmosphere of Berlin during the rise of the Nazis. And the Sunday Telegraph says, Isherwood sketches with the lightest of touches the last gasp of decaying demi-monde and the vigorous world of communists and Nazis grappling with each other on the edge of the abyss. Or the abyss, I guess. Not the abyss. She's a nun. He's written a lot of books, which is like fantastic. Wrote some with W.H. Auden. I did not know that. This is 2 W.H. Auden. Didn't know that either. He only died in 86. I did know he had died somewhat recently. So he is an English writer, but he did live in Berlin for a while. And he did travel with W.H. Auden to China in the late 30s before coming to America in 39, which was his home, which I did know actually, because he was in a relationship with, I believe, a much younger man, and who is also an author, I think. No, the author is like dead or whatever when you read the book, but I always find it interesting to know about authors that I'm reading. I just find it wildly interesting. Oh no, I'm totally wrong. His best known book, oh god, I'm so stupid. I did know this, actually. I did know this and I just like blanked it. His best known book is Goodbye to Berlin, which is literally the inspiration for Cabaret. So I did actually know that. And he also has Christopher and His Kind is a memoir, which I would love to read at some point as well. Let's see though, I was looking at his partner. He died in Santa Monica, dang. He was only 80, you know, he could have, well, he probably might still be alive. He was friends with Truman Capote, that tracks. Yeah, so he was in a relationship with Dawn Backerty. Oh, there's a film adaptation of A Single Man with Colin Firth. I had literally zero idea. That's cool. I do love Colin Firth. Came out in 2009. I didn't even know this existed. Anyway, there's just this quote that is like stuck with me, and I will pass no judgment or thoughts right now, but I will share the quote, which is the 30-year age difference between Isherwood and Backerty raised eyebrows at the time, with Backerty, in his own words, regarded as a sort of child prostitute, but the two became a well-known and well-established couple in Southern Californian society with many Hollywood friends. Like, that's just interesting. We're just gonna leave it there. Oh, there was a movie about Dawn and Chris called Chris and Dawn. Oh, there's a television adaptation, a television film by the BBC starring Matt Smith of Christopher and His Kind, his memoir. I don't know, you didn't need that deep dive. It sounds interesting. It has very much, I'm not a big war novel reader. It's not something that really super interests me unless I have something else interesting, and I'm interested in Christopher Isherwood's writing and him as a person, and I'm also interested in the fact that it is like, the fact that it talks about atmosphere a lot, I think is something that I'm interested in specifically. So there is a war novel that I want to read. I don't know if it's really a war novel. But it's about World War I, I think. I'm totally blanking on the name, but it's by Alice Wynne, and I've had it, I got it from Goldsboro. It sounds right up my alley, and it sounds heartbreaking. It feels like a fall read. Then we have, I'll just do these all together. I have 3 Virginia Woolfs. I have read Mrs. Dalloway, and I really actually love Mrs. Dalloway, which I've read a couple times, and I really love it. It gets better every time I read it, but I feel like it's time to finally break. I've read some of her nonfiction as well, her essays. I am not as big a fan. I did enjoy A Room of Her Own. One's Own or Her Own, I don't remember. I thought it was time to actually like break out and read some of her fiction, her other fiction besides Mrs. Dalloway. So the 3 that I am most interested in are The Waves, Orlando, which is a queer masterpiece from what I understand, because Orlando, I believe, starts as a woman. As the tale begins, Orlando is a passionate young nobleman whose days are spent in rowdy revelry filled with the colorful delights of Queen Elizabeth's court, but by the close he will have transformed into a modern 36-year-old woman, and 3 centuries will have passed. Oh, there's that picture. What? And then also To the Lighthouse. To the Lighthouse and The Waves feel very summery to me. One of these, don't remember which one. Yeah, To the Lighthouse is about a family and their 8 children summering at a lighthouse, which sounds fucking stressful, but also very summery. To the Waves, I'm sorry. The Waves, oh, I guess I didn't know what this one was about, but I do, actually, this one sounds also really good. It's an astonishingly beautiful and poetic novel that begins with 6 children playing in a garden by the sea and follows their lives as they grow up and experience friendship, love, and grief at the death of their beloved friend, Percival. I do kind of love these sort of epics. I don't know if that's not the right word, but these like long-term studies of people and families, which you're gonna see on here later. I pulled one series in particular I really want to read because it like follows the family through so much, and I'm just so interested. Oh, it's cold now. Okay, we're done. I cannot. Cold tea in me. We do not vibe. Anti-vibes there. Makes me want to regurgitate. We have The Constant Nymph by Margaret Kennedy. I also have another Margaret Kennedy book, but this is the one that I'm most interested in. Again, love this cover. The other one I have is Troy Chimneys. It sounds like a little like insane, and I'm here for it. The description says, avant-garde composer Albert Sanger lives in a ramshackle chalet in the Swiss Alps, surrounded by his circus of assorted children, admirers, and slatternly mistress. And slattern, there's only one. The family and their home life may be chaotic, but visitors fall into an enchantment, and the claims of respectable life or upbringing fall away. But when Sanger dies, the circus must break up and each find a more conventional way of life. But 14-year-old Teresa is already deeply in love. For her, the outside world holds nothing but tragedy. It just feels like it's gonna be such a fun little like romp. Flipping through, I love the names. We have obviously the Teresa is a name I love. Carol with a Y. Florence, I think I just saw Jane. Paulina, that one's good. Oh, what was that? That was a pretty name. Oh, the years have not, this is from the introduction. We're just gonna read like it. The years have not been kind to the constant nymph. Though the novel in itself has aged notably well, this oddly titled work has suffered from neglect, slipping from public awareness as its author has fallen perilously out of fashion. Nymphs themselves as a concept are hardly in vogue. But it was a runaway bestseller in the 1920s. Inspiring a play, it was praised by critics from J.M. Barrie to Walter de la Mare and Cyril Conley. It is hugely enjoyable, both entertaining and psychologically profound. Constant Nymph is startlingly modern in its outlook, the bohemian world it conjures being in many ways more progressive than the society we find ourselves inhabiting almost a century later. There's a TikToker. Oh, I will try to find him and his channel and like link it down below. He talks about classic authors, but he runs a used and rare and like antique bookshop, I believe. And anyway, I always like to watch what he talks about, and he was recently talking about Oscar Wilde, and I read earlier this year or late last year I read a bunch of Oscar Wilde fairy tales and just like fell in love. It's been a while. I read The Importance of Being Earnest in high school, but I haven't since I was an adult read anything besides those fairy tales. And he was talking a lot about how about the Oscar Wilde's trials and imprisonment and exile, and also that he wrote De Profundis in prison, and we talked about that a lot. And it was a really great series of TikToks, and I really enjoyed it, and it really just reminded me that I wanted to read more Oscar Wilde this year. And so the picture of Dorian Gray, which I've never read, and this cover, I love the vibes, although from what I understand, probably not actually akin to what this book is like, but I really do want to read The Picture of Dorian Gray. Is, you know, a classic dark academia text. This is also dense. I feel like, having read some of his short stories, I feel a little more comfortable going into his novel, because I think one of the big hangups I had was just the novel itself. I wasn't sure if I would be a fan of the writing. However, now I don't have anything to fear. This is obviously the edition that was published, so it's censored. I'd like to read this edition because of what I have, but I think that maybe a year or so after this, I might try to pick up the uncensored version. I'm feeling the cold, or COVID, whatever it was. I'm feeling it right now. Yeah, my throat is like killing me a little bit. I hope this video isn't too like all over the place. I feel like it is. So then I have the Gormenghast trilogy by Mervyn Peake. Is all three that he wrote. He died. It was supposed to be like an epic fantasy series. He died before it could be completed, and from what I understand, the third book is very strange and not really on purpose. I'm pretty sure it's incomplete as well still. Maybe it was complete. He died before it could be, and there's kind of a text that I guess his widow wrote completed that I'm not 100% sure how that all works. This is like the gothic fantasy from what I understand. It is supposed to be weird and strange, and I don't 100% know what it's about, except that you are following Titus. I think in the first one Titus Grown. In the first one he is a child. I think in Gormenghast, the second one, he is maybe an adult, like young adult. The Times says a master of the macabre and a traveler through the deeper and darker chasms of the imagination. I have heard the aesthetic sort of compared to the Gideon the Ninth aesthetic, and he was friends with C.S. Mervyn Peake was friends or part of the group of writers with C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien. So that's also interesting. Those are some of his contemporaries. I actually did start reading Titus Groan a long time ago, but had to put it down because I was just not mentally, I'll have to be ready for that when I do finally dig into this. And this is the whole trilogy in one. I think it was originally gonna be like a lot longer. It has art. Oh, maybe this edition didn't keep the art. Yeah, it did. It has art from Marvin Peake himself, which is neat. I dig it. Yeah, definitely not now when I'm sick. Like, I don't think I could focus on it at all. Something tells me. Yeah, that pile's gonna like fall, so we just won't even. And then finally, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I feel like this doesn't need any introduction. It's War and Peace. I honestly don't think I would read this edition. This is just a collector's edition. This is the Pavir and Volkonsky translation, which I believe is the most famous, but this is just for collectible. I just don't own a different one. I'd probably get the Oxford World Classics to match my Anna Karenina. This is the other great Russian novel I said was on here. I have a feeling I will dig War and Peace more than Anna Karenina because I've actually tried reading War and Peace like 2 or 3 times before and thoroughly enjoyed it. I just got distracted because it's such a long freaking book. So again, I have to kind of be ready to like settle in. A long book, but I read like a third of it the first time and thoroughly loved everything I read. Also just like, it's so satisfying to like pet this book. I feel like I don't need anything else to say about that. And I absolutely would do a video like I did for Anna Karenina when I read this one. And it is also, because Anna Karenina was 4 video vlogs long. This one probably be similar because it's split into 4 volumes and that would probably be the easiest way to just do it. And then we've got, I have the first 2 in this series by Elizabeth Jane Howard. This is the Cazalet Chronicles. Book 1 is The Light Years, and then book 2 is Marking Time, and I forced myself not to buy any more. Look at the spines line up because I have to actually give them a shot and give them a try, and I'm not gonna let myself buy more until I've actually, you know, read them a little bit. It's my weakness is pretty books, and I love these covers. This is like a family epic where we're following the Cazalets. It is post World War I. It says, told with exceptional grace, The Light Years is a modern classic of 20th century English life and is the first novel in Elizabeth Jane Howard's extraordinary best-selling family saga, The Cazalet Chronicles. And we follow, I think there are 4 siblings, 3 brothers and a sister, and we follow them and their families. Oh, wow. So this must have been Camilla, but it says Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cornwall. If I was sent to a desert island with one book, this would be my choice. At the time, that would have been her. I feel like this is going to be a series that I want to read back to back, but may not because they are thick. Then we have by Anais Nin, Henry and June. I have a one of those like pocket-sized modern classics of an Anais Nin book, novelette. I really want to read this one. Henry and June. Henry is Henry Miller and his wife June Mansfield. It is, I believe, a fairly explicit account. It is taken from her diaries, and I think Henry Miller is the one who compiled them, actually. I was really interested in this after I saw just some very beautiful quotes from it. Let me see if I can find the quote that made me go, I have to read this book. This sounds right up my alley. This sounds like a very wintry book to me, though. Actually, I could see it summer or winter, but I feel like it has to be the extremes of the seasons. There are so many quotes. I don't know. There was this really, really fantastic quote that, like, captured me, and I was like, I have to read that book. Quartet in Autumn. I remember I was like, I want to read another Barbara Penn because I loved Jane and Prudence. I loved Jane and Prudence, one of my favorite novels I've read this year. And one did not drink sherry before the evening, just as one did not read a novel in the morning. This just sounds just so good. I picked up this edition in London when I was there, and I love the white spine. This is how Picador Classics used to look. I just like, I really think this one would be delightful. I think all of her stuff is probably really delightful, but this one I remember being interested in before I had even known who Barbara Penn was. So Quartet in Autumn, it has to be an autumn read. Like, I can't read that anytime, but I could definitely see this being early early autumn, and just the absolute vibes from this cover, and just she is this like very like quaint writer, and her stuff is, I don't want to say small stories, but they're not big stories, they're character studies, and they're just so good. I think the last Russian I have on this list, oh, I have another Barbara Pym on here too, good for me. But the last Russian author I have on here is Vladimir Nabokov, Pale Fire. This is, I've really wanted to read a Nabokov for a while, and this is the one I've kind of settled on. This is the only one I own. It might have a short story collection as well somewhere, but this it's a poem called Pale Fire, a poem and 4 cantos. So that's the poem. And then the rest of the novel is the editor or the editor doing a commentary on the poem. So it'll be lines 1 to 4. I was the shadow of the waxing slain, etc. And then he'll like go in to talk about it, and you sort of discover, I feel like it's kind of mystery-esque, but you discover what happened in this commentary. And I absolutely love that. I think that is so cool. Like, what a unique concept. There is a huge foreword. I think the foreword is part of the story. It is. This one just sounds so fun. I actually really want to read Lolita as well. I, again, want to read the books I actually own, so when I read a Nabokov, it will be Pale Fire, but I have plans to read Lolita in kind of conversation with other books. I want to read Lolita, and then reading Lolita in Tehran, and then read My Dark Vanessa, and I want to read them all back to back. And I would love to do a video talking about it with y'all. I think that would just be a really interesting conversation to have about those books. But I feel like I really am gonna like Nabokov's writing. I couldn't say why, I just am drawn to him and his writing, and I know I like it. I'll be seriously disappointed if I don't. The other Barbara Pym on here I have is No Fond Return of Love, and I don't remember why I was like, oh, this one. But yeah, it was this one. This might actually be the only other Barbara Pym I have, so that could be why. I really love her. The course of the next couple of years, I think I'll just devour everything she's written. A campus novel, we have Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis, and Kingsley Amis was married, I think. He was the one married to Elizabeth Jane Howard. Could be wrong. This is dense. Look at that. Look at how dense that is. He was a genuine comic writer, probably the best after P.G. Wodehouse. Interesting. Honestly, I'm interested in this because it's a campus novel. Not dark academia, but a campus novel. So like, I guess light academia you might call it, but it's also like not academic necessarily. It says Jim Dixon has accidentally fallen into a job at one of Britain's new red brick universities. A moderately successful future in the history department beckons as long as Jim can survive a magical singing weekend at Professor Welch's, deliver a lecture on Merry England, and resist Christine, the hopelessly desirable girlfriend of Welch's awful son, Bertrand. It's just because it's a campus novel. I love that. And that's like fantastic subgenre. Something that would like fall into that category is, I mean, The Secret History, but The Secret History is dark academia, but more Brideshead Revisited, I would say it's a campus novel. So another really short one, also Japanese literature, is Yasunari Kawabata's Snow Country. I really want to read this, but I feel like if I don't read it in the winter, I'll be disappointed. So if you've read it, let me know if I need to wait for the winter. It's about, this is translated by, this won a Nobel Prize in Literature. I actually did not know that. This was translated by Edward G. Seidenstiger. Hey, we found him again. It's a guy who travels to the mountains to meet with a geisha. I'm not sure if he's in love with her or just they're friends. I'm not sure. This would be a really short one though. Maybe the first snowfall I'll read this. Unless I cave and read it sooner. I love wintry books, and I actually really enjoy Japanese classics and literature as well, and I've sort of not read a lot of them lately. Someone who I feel like would be in a similar vein to, not having read it, but like Barbara Pym and Stella Gibbons. You know, I haven't read any, well, that's not true, I read nonfiction. Anyway, it's The Pursuit of Love and Other Novels by Nancy Mitford. She was a close friend of, wow, this is such tiny writing. Wow, I did not realize. It is 3 novels in here. It's The Pursuit of Love, Love in a Cold Climate, and The Blessing. I have not heard anything about The Blessing, but the other 2 I'm super interested in. I've read her nonfiction Marie Antoinette book, which was really, really good. I enjoyed the writing, and she was a close friend of Evelyn Waugh, who I love. So this is just, it says witty, irreverent stories of the upper classes in pre-war London and Paris conjure up a world of glamour, gossip, and decadence. She's one of the Mitfords, you know, that famous family. We're just gonna put the pile here now. It's gonna grow up this way a little bit. Just a couple more left. But I've wanted to read a Nancy Mitford novel for a while. I did love the, not Marie Antoinette. Why did I say it was Marie Antoinette? It was Madame de Pompadour, which I think it's just called Madame de Pompadour, and it was phenomenal. Just absolutely fantastic. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I fully love that. And I have Voltaire in Love, which is probably the next nonfiction I'll read from her. Now, this is a series I've been saying I'm going to read for a while, and I would love to read it back to back to back, and I would love to vlog it, but I don't know if I will. It's a big commitment, and that's why I've just like held off, and that is Proust's In Search of Lost Time. This volume Way, The Way by Swans or Swan's Way, another like epic of someone's life, and this is even smaller font. That's phenomenal. The introduction from the translator is huge. The translator is also, for those like me who love Gilmore Girls, the first line, unlike what Lorelai Gilmore says, is actually quite short. The first line is, "For a long time, I went to bed early." That's it. The second line is a little longer, but it's not like a whole page. So I feel like as long as I'm in my current job, this is not going to be, is he joining now that I've used his bed? This is not going to be a feasible series to commit to, just because the commute won't allow me to have a lot of time to read it. But if I change jobs or move closer to work, I think that's when I will 100% commit to it. I had a cough drop, so hopefully that'll help. Last 3 books. We have The Go Between by L.P. Hartley. Don't remember why this one interested me, just that I stare at it all the time and think about it all the time. When one long hot summer, so this will have to be a summer read, young Leo is staying with a school friend at Brandon Hall. He begins to act as a messenger between Ted, the farmer, and Marion, the beautiful young woman of the hall. He becomes drawn deeper and deeper into their dangerous game of deceit and desire until his role brings him to a shocking and premature revelation. The haunting story of a young boy's awakening into the secrets of the adult world, The Go Between, is also an unforgettable evocation of the boundaries of Edwardian society. You know, for some reason, and I couldn't tell you why, because I haven't read this book, I am getting very Alan Hollinghurst vibes from The Go Between. And maybe it was mentioned in Swimming Pool Library, but maybe I'm just writing that on top. These two don't really matter from each other, but I love Evelyn Waugh, and it has been far too long since I've read any of his work. So these are the 2 I'm most interested in picking up, which are Decline and Fall and Vile Bodies, and probably Vile Bodies would be next. I don't even care what they're about. It doesn't matter to me. I loved Brideshead Revisited. I need to read more of his writing. I absolutely just adore his stuff. And I have quite a few things, but haven't picked anything else up, which is on me. I'm really bad at this. I feel like I'm always staring at my classic books. Like, I want to read you right now, and then I just don't, because I get distracted by shiny object books. So even though this isn't a TBR, I think it would be nice if I was able to start reading more classics again and incorporate it back into my regular reading schedule. So that was a lot of books. That was fun to talk about. I enjoyed that. I might do more videos like this. I may not. I'm not sure. Sometimes you just want to sit down and talk about books, though. You know. You do. You're watching this channel. You understand. If you're new here, hi. Thank you for stopping by. Please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to me to have you here. I try to post content every week, and I am starting to do more vlogs again. So once those get rolling, that might be more like 2 a week. We'll see. Editing does take time. I want to see more content like this. Subscribe. Thanks. I'm really bad at pitching it, aren't I? It's fine. If you're somewhere cold, I hope you're staying warm. And if you're somewhere warm, I hope you're staying comfortable. And most of all, I hope you are reading a great book. I will see you guys next time. Bye.